Hey there, everybody. Professor Henry here, coming at you today with a little video on doing peer reviews on Canvas and also just doing peer reviews in general. Let's go ahead and dive right in and see what we got going on with this. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about the overall spirit of peer review, what our goals are, and why we do this. So, starting with our goals, ultimately, we want to be sure that we're reading and responding to the author's note that's been left for us. So, ideally, your colleague has included an author's note somewhere in their submission, hopefully right at the top, so it's the first thing that we read. And in that author's note, that's the opportunity for us to talk about where we are in our writing process and ask for the kind of feedback that we want. So read and respond to the author's note first and foremost. You also want to work on sharing ideas that you have for the writer to even better support their thesis and their topic sentences. And if, as you're reading their work, the thesis isn't clear, like you're not sure what their thesis is, then you should absolutely say so in your feedback, because that's really helpful feedback. Writers need and want to know if their thesis isn't standing out, and then that'll prompt them to make some choices for the next draft. The same thing for the body paragraphs. If they don't seem to have topic sentences, definitely say so. For the same reasons as the thesis, writers need to know if their body paragraphs, if it's not clear what they're trying to accomplish in the body paragraphs through their topic sentences. Overall, look for ways to prompt the writer to make additions and to make decisions to their writing. And all of that is in the spirit of helping us produce a draft that's even better next time. Some things that are not our goals are among this idea of correcting or making corrections to each other's writing. Okay, that is not the goal for peer review and peer feedback. Don't think about what's correct or incorrect. Instead, try to think about what could be more effective for the next draft. That's really the overall spirit of peer review. Hey, so how do you access assigned peer reviews that have been assigned to you through Canvas? Well, there's a couple things that you need to know. First of all, peer reviews are only assigned if you yourself submitted a draft. So if you have not submitted your work to the assignment where a peer review is required, you're not going to see a peer review assigned to you. And past a certain point, Canvas doesn't automatically assign you peer reviews like after you submit. There's the trigger for automated peer review assignments happens on a day and time. So if you go past the day and time, there's no trigger for automatic feedback or peer review to be assigned to you. I have to go in after the fact and do it manually. So if you submit late, just realize that there might be, in fact, there will be a delay. And if a couple of days go by and you don't see peer reviews assigned to you, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be sure to get those queued up for you. Another thing you need to know is that peer review assignments do not show up in the Canvas mobile app. You must use Canvas through Google Chrome, Safari, Edge, Firefox, etc. The peer review functions are just not available and compatible in the mobile app. You will not see them there and you won't be able to complete them there. So just sign into Canvas through the web browser of your choice. I recommend Google Chrome and you should be just fine. Now, assuming that you have a peer review assignment assigned to you and you are logged into Canvas through a web browser, they actually show up all over your Canvas account. They'll show up on our course homepage under the to-do list. They'll show up in the modules listed right under the assignment that the peer reviews have been assigned for, and they'll be listed on the original assignment page. So really Canvas tries to push it out to you and let you know in a variety of places, hey, you have some peer reviews assigned to you and be sure to get those done. For completing peer reviews, you can access your classmates' work by the method that's available. Maybe the assignment asked us to submit a share link to a Google Doc, so you should have access to that link and you can open up your colleagues' work in Google Docs, just be sure that if the link has been configured for editor permission, that you are not going in and making actual edits to your classmates' work. Instead, one thing you can do is switch over to like review mode or suggest mode instead of edit mode, and then you can type in suggestions that way. Sometimes a file is the thing that gets submitted to the Canvas assignment. And if the submission was like a Word document or a PDF or a PowerPoint or something like that, then you'll have access to Canvas's Doc Viewer. And Doc Viewer has a variety of annotation tools where you can do point comments, you can highlight stuff, and then you can write comments that are attached to the highlights and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty cool. There is a general comment box where you can write sentences to comment on the submission overall, and there are also ways, if a rubric has been attached to the assignment, where you can make rubric specific comments. Okay, speaking of the rubric, I wanted to show you an example of what a rubric for one of our assignments might look like. So rubrics are they're tools or they're instruments that let us, well, do a variety of things. They're involved in grading, they're involved in assessment, and I like to use them as a way to give feedback as well. So you can think of rubrics as this kind of like two-dimensional table that's made up of criteria and a rating. So looking at this rubric, for example, the first criteria is summary description, and then there are kind of three categories for rating. They would range from not meeting expectations to meeting expectations to exceeding expectations, and then there's a description for what the submission might look like in terms of that criteria and its rating. So for example, not meeting expectations for summary description. The essay offers little to no summary of the text. Readers are left to find and experience the relevant part of the texts for themselves. And then, so I'm saying that any sort of numeric rating that would be 2 or less would represent not meeting expectations, right? So don't think of this so much in terms of points, because we don't use points in our class. We use a grading contract that says that the important part is trying your best and submitting the work on time. So Canvas is really attached to this idea of points, but don't think of this as the assignment being worth points. Instead, think of the numbers as representing the concept of meeting expectations or exceeding expectations, and so on. So as you are reading through and experiencing your colleagues' work, you want to have the rubric in mind so that you can key in your ratings on the different criteria. Okay, you can type in a specific number value in the box. If you click on any of the boxes, it's automatically going to give the highest number for the criteria in the range. So for example, if I click on meeting expectations, it's going to set the value here to 4. If I click on exceeding expectations, it'll set the value to 6. But if you think it's a 5, then you can just type in the number 5. And as for leaving a rubric-specific comment, that's what this little conversation icon is for. So if you want to comment, for example, specifically on having a clear judgment or interpretation, right, head on right over here, tap the comment icon, and now you can write specific to having a clear judgment or interpretation. Right, so that is how the rubric system works. I mean, that's how rubrics work in general, but also specifically how you can key in ratings and comments on the rubric on our Canvas assignments. Okay, am I done with the PowerPoint side of things? Yes, I am. I wanted to hop over to an example paragraph just so I can show you what a version of helpful feedback might look like. So we have this body paragraph here. We'll assume that it's a body paragraph for an essay that is analyzing a song. In particular, we're looking at the song Sunset by the band the midnight. So let's look at this paragraph and see if we can find a helpful way to offer some feedback on it. So here's the paragraph. It starts with a quote or an example from the text. Faked our deaths, lit a match, closed the door, waited for the flash. Introduces a dramatic image of escape early in the song. The speaker does not describe an ordinary move away from town, but instead imagines staging a complete disappearance. By using this exaggerated scenario, the lyrics heighten the sense of urgency and frustration that is built up over far too long in the same place. The fantasy of destruction serves to make the desire for change feel absolute rather than tentative. At the same time, the shared we keeps the focus on partnership, suggesting that the appeal is not only about freedom, but also about loyalty. The moment relies on emotional intensity to persuade the listener that leaving is not just an option, but a necessity, or rather, but necessary to break from the past. So it's a pretty good paragraph overall. It quotes a couple of relevant sections and language from the text, and then it works on analyzing that language throughout the rest of the paragraph. Pretty good overall. But one thing that we might notice is that the paragraph starts by quoting and or summarizing the text. Now, this is a type of paragraph that I would not characterize as thesis driven or analytically driven, meaning that there's no topic sentence in the paragraph that makes an analytical claim about the text. In fact, what has happened in this paragraph is often what happens in early draft writing is probably as the paragraph was being written, we were writing our way toward understanding, so that by the time we thought of and got all of these sentences out, then we arrived at the so what part of the paragraph, or the conclusion, like, oh, here's the point of what I just wrote. The moment relies on emotional intensity to persuade the listener that leaving is not just an option, but a necessary break from the past. That's the significance of this moment in the text that I think I'm wanting to point out. So a version of the last sentence could actually work really well as a topic sentence for the paragraph. So in leaving a comment on this for feedback, right, we might just come over here and say, add a comment, and it's going to be associated with the text that I've just highlighted. And we can say something like, this is a great paragraph overall, but I noticed that it does not have a analytical topic sentence. Could a version of the last sentence work? Maybe we could just leave it at that. Okay, that is a great and super helpful comment, and it's the kind of feedback where, again, it's not about making corrections, it's about making observations and suggestions, and then prompting the writer to think further and to make decisions. Maybe then that would lead the writer to come up with a paragraph like this. I don't want to reread the whole thing, but I'll point out some of the specific changes. So there's the addition of a more analytical or thesis-driven topic sentence. So check this one out. Through specific lyrical moves, Sunset effectively establishes a shared emotional experience with listeners by creating a sense of urgency and necessity right after the spoken samples at the beginning of the song. The first sung lyrics are, faked our deaths, lit a match, closed the door, waited for the flash. And it introduces a dramatic image of escape early in the song. Okay, maybe something like this, just to check in with the grammar of the thing. Right, so now we have this thesis-driven analytical topic sentence that tells the reader what the point or what the significance of the paragraph is, and probably how it's connected or related to the thesis, right there in the topic sentence, first thing in the paragraph. Okay, and then this doesn't mean that you would have to delete the last sentence. You could keep it there as a kind of mini conclusion for the paragraph. And then there's another sentence that we added. This one works to kind of transition into the next paragraph. So there are also repeating musical motifs that build an emotional connection with the listener. Then presumably the next paragraph would go on to analyze some moments of like the instrumental music rather than the lyrics. Okay, so that's the idea. A couple of examples then of how to read and give feedback in a way that's constructive and that helps the writer think more deeply about their work and to make decisions for the next draft. It's about what would be even more effective for next time. It's not about making corrections and, you know, focusing on grammar and that sort of stuff. Okay, and then also some examples of like what a good body paragraph would look like before and after an analytical topic sentence. All right, everybody. So there you have it. Hopefully that this was helpful for you and that this sets you up for a great deal of success in our current and future peer review endeavors. So good luck with that, everybody. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.